welcome to Forbes India Pathbreakers. I'm Neha Bothra. This is a show where we bring you conversations with inspiring pioneers who've built world-class organizations ground up. I'm here to meet Nithin Kamath, the Chief Executive of Zerodha, the online trading platform that has disrupted the broking industry. I'm here to understand what it takes to win in trading and investing and in life. Stay tuned. This is Nithin Kamath's story. Nithin, thank you so much for joining us on Pathbreakers. I'm so happy to finally have you on the show.
No, thanks for having me on this.
Nithin, you always wanted to be a broker. I mean, you've brought in the whole glam element.
Not really. I mean, I started off, wanting to be a trader, and along the way, it felt like there's an opportunity to be a better broker for traders like me back then, and that's how the transition happened. People actually misconstrue what trading is. At trading, people think trading is usually just trading stocks, right? But I think of trading as more trading your time for what has got the best return on your, efforts. Like, so if I'm a singer, I should go build my business or career in singing, right? And that's a trade, right? That's and so like that. I think you need to go figure what is something that you love to do, and then kind of build a business around this, and broking was accidental, to be very honest. In 2009-10, we kind of spotted an opportunity that there's an opportunity to be a better broker, and there was also the National Stock Exchange was offering a platform which allowed for people without technology background to kind of get started as a broker, and that's how Zerodha started.
You started trading when you were 17, right?
Right.
How did you take to trading? Do you remember your first trade?
I was in this whole neighborhood of, Marwadis and, people who start business very early, and, they get introduced to money very early. And that's how my introduction to trading and markets happened. That, triggered this whole curiosity of sorts. And I think I ended up, picking up, luckily, something that I ended up being passionate about. I think I kind of fell in love with the idea that you can make money quickly, but which is, over time I realized it's absolutely wrong idea.
Mm-hmm. So did trading help you make money quickly?
Make money quickly and lose quickly, lose lose very fast as well. So because I think all the money I made for 3 or 4 years, I lost it all in 2001 when, this whole Y2K bust happened, right? And I lost it in like a week's time, and then I borrowed money also at that point of time. So I lost all the money I'd made plus more money which I'd borrowed. So which kind of forced me to go find a job and work. But I kind of learned most of my life skills in that job. I worked in a call center from 2001 to 2005. In hindsight, each of those things, mistakes that I've done in my life, I think has helped me become, I think, like a better person of sorts. And there's a saying, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger of sorts.
So tell me one thing, what did trading teach you? When I think of trading, I think of greed, I think of fear. How did you learn to master these emotions?
No, I would be lying if I said I mastered my mind. That's taking it too far. But I think I kind of discovered what, who am I types, in the sense as a person, right? Because it's almost impossible for anyone to say you're not going to be influenced by greed and fear. I mean, probably some monks and etc. Right? But normal people, I doubt if someone can claim that these biases won't affect them. I know that I'm going to do stupidity, right? And I'm always trying to figure out what stupidity I can do, and I'm trying to cover for it before it happens. Mistakes happen when you're irrational.
How did the journey from trading to broking happen? Setting up Zerodha, and before that, I think you had your sub-broking outfit as well. Could you tell us a bit about that? That whole journey of moving from a whole-time trader to actually thinking of a business wherein you can get retail investors to participate and have a platform of sorts.
Got it. Yeah. No, I mean, I think 2005 is when I quit my job. It's around the same time Nikhil, my younger brother, joined me. He's 7 years younger, but he's a much sharper trader than I am, right? And question was, if he can trade well, why should I also sit and trade? Because if he's trading, can I do something else, which is kind of an extension of our business? Also, I think I generally was more, the type who went and was trying to evangelize markets, etc. So I used to run large communities even before Zerodha. So I used to run some really large Yahoo Messenger groups, Orkut communities, and on trading and stock markets and all of that. And then we became the sub broker for for Reliance Money. So we set up shop. I enjoyed this interacting with customers. I found it interesting of sorts. So yeah, so in 2009-10, when we spotted this opportunity of the exchange giving us a free trading platform, without the cost of building it being too high, and that's really how Zerodha started in 2010. So yeah, so it's again, there was a lot of happenstance and right place, right time. It was like one of those, thin lines between passion and foolishness, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm. Has it kind of sunk in the last 12 years? Your rise, it's been meteoric.
Right.
Not a straight line, but 2020 onwards, Zerodha just suddenly became one big startup that everybody knew of. Everyone wanted to be like you. You became a role model, especially the fact that Zerodha is bootstrapped, it's positive cash flow.
I think especially the last 2-3 years, right? We're all sitting at home and hardly doing any social interactions. So every time we meet someone else, someone says, "Oh, dude, are you from Zerodha? And are you Nithin from Zerodha?" And then they say, they feel so happy meeting me, and I'm like, "Dude, why are you feeling like this way?" So that 3 years, 4 years of growth has still not sunk in terms of how big the business has gotten. About why we get so much spotlight, that I'm still confused.
I can tell you why, because at last count, there are 77,000 startups registered. Of them, I think about 100 are unicorns, only a handful are profitable. So all the spotlight comes on Zerodha. But yes, as you pointed out, it seems to be the most obvious thing to do, right? A business is there to generate profits. How do you think this whole notion came about where founders could, very extravagantly just focus on GMVs and not really throw light on the path to profitability? How did this start and what's the end game?
I don't know why there are only few businesses like us, who are built to generate profits, who have not raised venture capital, or, who don't, all constantly exaggerate, right? Who are eternal optimists of sorts. People need to know that large businesses can be built in different ways. It's not just the continuously keep raising VC money, continuously keep increasing valuations, don't focus on profits but growth. Over the last 5 to 7 years, almost every business starting off, it's been a cut, copy, paste model. The odds of building a resilient business is much lesser, right? I personally think money brings obligation. And you have to make returns to that investor. But I see a lot of founders not feeling obligated to the money, right? So I think in the last 5-6 years, it's been like weird times of sorts, and I think it is fueled by all the excess money that was available in the world. And over the last, I think, 3 to 4 months, we are seeing some of the correction happening.
I don't know if I'm right, but another difference I noticed is that you seem to have spent a lot of time in the industry, understanding the dynamics of the industry before actually founding a company in that space. With many founders, the situation seems to be very different, wherein they graduate from fancy colleges, they have MBA degrees, but they don't necessarily spend time in the industry they want to disrupt. So maybe some learnings are missing, and when it comes to operational management and the cash flow aspect of it, maybe that's one gap that needs to be looked into perhaps.
Building a business is really, really hard, right? As in, it's kind of created an illusion over the last 4 or 5 years that you can build business quickly. Of course, there are exceptions, right? And the best odds of you being able to do it is if you have experience before you start it. Especially in a regulated industry, one misstep is all it takes to kind of, give away everything that you gained. You need to have what is called as a regulatory foresight. Like, how we have a business foresight. And all of that can only happen if you have some kind of background or experience. I think people should spend time and effort, improving their skills before starting a business for sure.
Yes, I think you are a very good example. When you started in 2010, it wasn't the best time, as you said, to get into the broking business, and yet you did that. And I think you knew something which maybe the incumbents missed reading. The reason I say that is because just about 6 years later, the regulator allowed online onboarding of customers. And I think that just put Zerodha in such a good spot, being at the right place at the right time, as you say. So how do you think that intuition came about? How do you develop that?
Now, when online onboarding started in 2016, I think we've been like extremely fast and nimble. Even today, as a large organization, I think we are usually one of the first to adapt to changes, right? And because I know that the day I stop doing that is when we can get disrupted by someone else. One is regulatory foresight absolutely has helped. If you're a startup, you're supposed to be fast. The problem with a lot of startups today is they almost start becoming as fast as their incumbents after a while. How do you maintain the lead on competition? I think you just have to keep taking bets, keep improving.
Mm-hmm. I remember you opened in 2010, and for the next 3-4 years, a lot of questions were asked about the viability of the business model. Around 2014-15, that's when people started talking about Zerodha, despite the fact that Zerodha never came out with any sort of advertisements. Or how do you think the magic started unfolding? From questions being asked to suddenly, this blind faith of sorts, building credibility. I think that was one big important area for Zerodha.
No, it's just time and doing what is right for the customer for long periods of time, right? Really, that's the only way to build credibility. A lot of people think I can, put advertisements and build credibility, do marketing and do credibility. It doesn't, it doesn't flow through. The first 3-4 years, a lot of people question saying, you're low cost, what if you run away? Because you always associate quality with price, right? As in, a lot of people wouldn't keep money with us or stocks with us. They would come trade with small amounts of, the core philosophy of the business has been that we will not do anything to the customer that we don't want done to us. Like, people have, realized what we stand for as a business. They've appreciated it, acknowledged it, and then said good things about it to their friends and family. So I think what I feel most proud about Zerodha is the fact that we've gotten to 11 million customers without ever marketing and advertising, right? As in, it's unheard of, it's unheard of, not just in India, across globally. Because at the end of the day, a product also is important. That is really the moat for the business. And that's how I think, we've been able to grow till here as a business.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it seems to be that there's so much room to grow, because every time you talk about this, people throw numbers at you that the equity market in India is just about 5% penetrated. There's room for so much growth, exponential in fact. And that actually puts Zerodha in a very sweet spot. Right?
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of Charlie Munger. And, he's got this one saying which says, he's a cheerful pessimist, right? And I feel I am like, I'm very similar to him, in that sense, because I think we are surrounded by people who have an incentive to be eternal optimists, right? And that's where a lot of stories get exaggerated. Even just this penetration story, right? As in, out of the 150 crore Indians, if you look at 10 crore Indians who have a Demat account, it seems like it's a 5% penetration. But if you look at India as 15 crore Indians who make, as a household, 30,000 rupees a month, it's amazing penetration. If you don't make 30,000 rupees as a household in India today, it's very hard to have enough money left on the table to be able to save invest at the end of the month. It gets a lot of attention, but I'm not sold to it. I think eventually India will become richer. Right? So I think it'll happen over the next 5-10 years. That when the target market grows, then potentially how much the business can grow also increases. But you need to understand that our business is very high beta, right? Our fortunes are dependent on how the underlying stock markets are. Because we are in a bull market, a stockbroking firm gets all the attention, right? But I think there'll be a mean reversion at some point of time. Just being, I think a little bit of, not say pessimist, like a rational optimist, also sets the expectations right for everyone else. Yeah, so I think one of the reasons I come out and talk about this openly is because
You are the first CEO to do so, you know that, right? Most CEOs know very well the business can't be predicted the way they are doing it, but I think they have quarter-on-quarter obligations, and their commentary is almost always very encouraging for investors.
There's so much pressure of this quarter on quarter, for listed companies. For unlisted companies, it's year on year because, there is no quarter on quarter, but still there's a year on year pressure. But I think in the long run, to do well as a business, you have to think of business 5 years out, 10 years out, and then do what is right for that 5 years, 10 years. I think to remain efficient as a business. Otherwise, you're constantly thinking quarter on quarter, saying quarter on quarter. Like, it's always a chase, right? I think one of the things that I'm proud about at Zerodha is that we don't have any revenue targets in the business. We don't have any sales targets, no growth targets. The idea is you get up every day, you say you get better as a business in some form.
Indeed. What's your vision for Zerodha, Nithin? Having said all this, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I'm not asking for milestones, but directionally, how do you see Zerodha moving?
Yeah. See, the thing is, when we started the business, the mission was, there are active traders. We want to reduce the trading costs and build some transparency in the business. Right now, like every single thing that we think about as a business is about how do we help our customers do better in terms of money, right? As in, how do we, when they are taking their money decisions, how do we get them to do less of mistakes, right? Because it's like, when someone comes and asks me, Nithin, how to make money in the stock markets, I've done this for 25 years, I have no clue how. But there are mistakes to avoid. The chances of you making money in the markets increases, significantly. So we are saying today we're trying to see if we can incorporate these money rules on the platform.
Okay.
So when a customer is making the money mistake, can we nudge him and say, you know what, dude, you're making a money mistake. So we are not forcing him out of it,
sure,
right? But we are doing the job of nudging, and it's kind of the first nudge we incorporated was around this thing called a penny stock nudge, and our penny stock trading volumes as a percentage of our equity volumes is down like 75% after that. Right? And so we know it works. I think we're in a better position to be able to take some of these decisions, which are very non-traditional of sorts, as a business. So, and I know that if we did that, like some of our peers will be forced to follow it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also very excited about our foundations. We have decided to give it most of it away, right? As in, we started with a $100 million allocation to the foundation. We have deployed half of it, and we are saying, as and when the business generates more profits, we're going to use a foundation to kind of support for-profits, not-for-profits working in the space of climate change, creation of livelihood, etc. So I think it's also a very important angle in today's world that success is also used for the good of the society in some way.
It's amply clear that you're not in the game of value unlocking, so to say. But why do you not want to do an IPO?
Right. Yeah, it is kind of borderline hypocrisy if I, as a stockbroker, who tells everyone to come list on the exchange, generate wealth, don't list on the, don't do an IPO ourselves or don't list on the stock exchange. The reason today is because there is no predictability in the business. Like, when you ask me the question, what is Zerodha for the future? I don't know what our business will do next year. I don't know what it will do next quarter, right? Because our revenues, like 75-80% of our revenues is brokerage revenue. And that is directly proportional to what the underlying market does. When you list on the exchange, I think the business needs to have some kind of predictability, right? So investors know what this business can do 1, 2, 3 years. Today there is no predictability. Forget investors. There is no predictability for me. So how can I, at this point of time, go and raise capital from investors? I think retail investors are the one who are the lowest in the food cycle in terms of the risk-taking abilities. And think of your IPO in that sense, and not think of IPO as an exit for your existing investors, which is what a bad IPO is also brand damage. Like when I say that we're going to give away most of our success, while it might seem like I'm doing it for social good, but I also think it's for the good of the business, because as the climate change problems increase, I think the world will get polarized, right? And I think questions will be asked tomorrow of businesses who had the wherewithals to do something. Think of the Holocaust, right? The questions are still asked of Germans on that day, of all the Germans who knew it is a problem but didn't do anything about it. right? Saying, they still live in guilt, saying, the climate change problem is real, right? As in, I think, what's happening to the world is quite crazy and scary. And 5 years from now, it could just, you don't know what's the point where, it can just accentuate, right, all these problems. You'll understand why it's important for the business to use its success to
For social
attempt to
good.
solve some of these problems. I might sound a little stupid saying all of this, but I think
No, not at all. Not at all.
so
It's refreshing to hear something different. But tell me one thing, you talk about predictability. Would you at some point want to reduce, say, 80% of the revenue coming from the broking business and diversify the business? So that brings in more predictability to the business.
We're trying very hard because, depending so much on brokerage revenue as a business is also not right for the business. I think we need to kind of build more verticals and kind of smoothen out that whatever volatility because of the brokering revenue. I think the natural extension is really to build an advisory business. I think we are in a good position to be able to attempt to kind of solve for that problem. You still have to make money on it, but you have to make it very transparent and where a customer knows upfront, right? And where the fees you collect has got nothing to do with the products that you are selling to the customer. And that's where the conflicts come in. So we'll probably do that. We applied for an AMC license, so hopefully we'll have that. I think it'll be hard to make money in that AMC business, but because it's very competitive and very low cost. But we are kind of attempting stuff, which is very around our core competencies of sorts. Because today our broking revenues also is very dependent on F&O traders and intraday traders, because we are free for equity investors, right? So I don't know. Eventually, if you want to reduce dependency on F&O trading and equity intraday, at some point you'll have to probably introduce some brokerage for equity investing, because that increases predictability.
You spoke about work-life balance. It's easier said than done.
Right.
Do you manage to achieve it?
I try hard, so I've always thought about like health and fitness very seriously through my life. I've always played a sport. I've gone through periods where I've added weight, I've lost weight based on my diet and and how many parties, etc. But generally I've been quite health conscious. I love music, I play a bunch of instruments. My mom used to be a Veena teacher. I find giving some time for music every day very almost meditative of sorts. I think I can do more in terms of giving time to the wife and the son. So I turn off all my devices at 8 p.m. now. Okay. I need to find ways to be less distracted with work. It's very hard. I think it's one of the hardest thing to do, which is just to be able to sit down and give undivided attention to people.
We are at the end of the conversation, Nithin, and I hope you'll give me an honest answer. How are you so grounded with what you've achieved? Any other person could just be intoxicated with all the fame, recognition, money that's come your way. How do you manage to stay so grounded and...
Right. No, thanks for saying that I'm grounded. No, but
you are.
No, but I think, like I said earlier, I think I'm thinking of my life as how do you want to live your last 10 years of your life, right? And then there's a whole concept called as backcasting, right? So you think how you want to live your life in the last 10 years, and then you need to make your changes to your life today to be able to lead that life. So I want to be like, physically active, healthy, and etc. Right? And I know that to be able to be like that, I need to be as low volatile as possible. I need to maintain like that constant, steady state, as a person of sorts. So I think also it's experience. I've kind of blown up a couple of times. I've made money, lost money, and so I know it's a roller coaster. So if you're gonna get excited, very excited at the top, it's gonna there is some like a drop waiting somewhere around the corners. Maybe some of the genes as well. My dad is also very similar. Seeing him getting impacted with both ups and downs in his life of sorts.
So what does money mean to you? What does being on a rich list mean for Nithin Kamath?
being on a rich list is a pain in the, so I mean, I wish, we could have done this all in stealth, because, that means nothing, it's just too much of an obligation of sorts. But money, personally for me, is freedom, so it just has given the freedom to pursue everything that I've always wanted, and
and not becoming a slave to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, absolutely. Yeah. If you become slave, then it's not really freedom. Then,
Yes. Thank you so much, Nithin, for your time.
Thanks for having me on this. Hopefully
Thank you so much.
Cheers.